Good morning, class. My name is Iris, and today I'll be presenting on the ethical review of DBS and OCBC banking institution alongside my group mates, Matthias, Siki, and Yuting. Starting with the company overview, DBS was founded in 1968 and has headquartered in Singapore since. The company holds over 36 branches island-wide with local bank POSB as their subsidiary. The company lives by its motto, Live More, Bank Less, which promises on delivering a system so simple that customers have more time to spend with the people they care about. The firm is currently led by Piyush Gupta. OCBC was founded in 1912, currently holding over 43 offices locally across Singapore. The company's branding, simply spot on, pledges that the bank takes time and effort to listen in order to truly understand their customer needs, so as to cater the best solutions. OCBC is currently managed by Samuel Sin.
Now I'll be going through our first cultural dimension, marketing. In DBS website, they mentioned that they will help people to invest confidently by providing insights for the products. Additionally, they promise to promote the appropriate investment products for each investor. However, looking at high note 5 case, the note is a high-risk structured financial product with 100 million in investment capital. Across 1,000 investors, all rendered worthless. They sued DBS in an attempt to get back the capital. Research showed that the RMB sold unsuitable high-risk products to elderly, most of whom are conservative investors. Other than that, DBS RMs even give investors the wrong facts by saying that high note 5 was of low risk, therefore investors even invested the CPF money in it. Thus, DBS failed to provide sufficient information to investors. For OCBC formal position, the promise that they will provide sufficient investment insights to help investors choose the most suitable financial products as well. In reality, OCBC provides free financial courses for elderly. They did a survey and found out that many Singaporeans do not have sufficient financial knowledge. Thus, they roll out a financial literacy program which reveals the risks associated with various financial products so that elderly could invest confidently, choosing the most suitable financial product. Now we are applying the ethics or marketing concept. The first concept is the 4Ps, promotion issues. We state that the seller should not target socially vulnerable groups. For DBS, by targeting to the elderly, DBS did not help them to invest properly. Instead, in the pursuit of different profit, the bank chose to exploit elderly investors who could not understand the complexities of the financial product. This showed that the misalignment with the formal position. For OCBC, they educate the elderly to gain investment knowledge so that they could be less vulnerable in investing. In a formal position, they promise that they will help investors to trade with confidence. Thus, they are aligned with the formal positions. The second concept is let the seller aware. We said that the seller has the responsibility to reveal the risk of financial products sold. In the DBS formal position, they promise that they will provide sufficient investment insights to the investors. However, in high note 5 case, they did not accurately inform investors of the riskless product, making the investors into a false sense of safety. Thus, the failure of providing sufficient investment information violates the formal position. Unlike DBS, OCBC provides financial literacy courses to reveal risks associated with each type of product. In the formal position, they promise that to help the people invest confidently. Therefore, they are aligned with the formal positions. In conclusion, for marketing, DBS was misaligned and OCBC was aligned. Now I'll be passing my time to Matthias to discuss the second cultural dimension.
Moving on to the next cultural dimension, job discrimination. We'll first look at DBS. The firm has repeatedly stated that they embrace gender and cultural diversity to create a diverse and inclusive environment. The firm also champions clear hiring and promotion practices. So what we see here is that the company has a strong stance on gender, race, religion, and disability equality with a specific focus on gender equality in view of the gender pay gaps and biases in hiring and promotions. On top of that, DBS have been included in the inaugural Bloomberg Gender Equality Index alongside 104 other firms globally in view of their gender equality efforts. So what this tells us is that following up on their promise and focus of promoting gender equality, DBS has since successfully implemented several key initiatives. We held an interview with an ex-employee of DBS and shared about how there seems to be a preference for women in sales roles. This is especially so in the private bank part of the firm. Thus, there seems to be some form of biases towards women in this role. Moving on to OCBC, let's look at their formal position. Their website shows their core values, which appears to be ambiguous and without any real focus. In their career page, they seem to support diversity, inclusion, and sustainability. A former employee left a pretty negative review on the bank's Glassdoor page, speaking to unfair hiring practices of the firm. The HR has been known to ask irrelevant and sensitive questions during interviews. Thus, OCBC seems to have an ongoing gender discrimination coupled with unfair hiring practices. We carried out an interview with an ex-employee who shared about how female employees were given less important tasks and work, and many did not speak up in meetings out of fear and as a result of ongoing discrimination. Contrary to what was publicized, the OCBC environment seems to be one that discriminates against a particular gender, giving unequal opportunities for growth and by extension, promotion. So our key takeaways for the two banks are as such. Firstly, we notice some form of gender discrimination in both banks, especially in OCBC. Secondly, there seems to be other forms of job discrimination in both banks as well. Our third point is that the high power of reward and coercive has led to an immoral organizational political behavior, such as discriminating and bullying of females. Lastly, we note that both firms violate one of the 10 key principles of CSR, which is to eliminate any form of discrimination in the workplace. So evaluation shows that DBS has a pretty strong formal and informal system in view of their Bloomberg GI award, and that both aligns. As for OCBC, they seem to have a solid formal system, but what actually happens isn't aligned with that and isn't that great.
Now I'll be going through the CSR cultural dimension for both banks. For OCBC, it has 5 pillars under its CSR policies, and will be looking at OCBC's responsibility to the environment. OCBC took the first step to move away from financing coal projects in April 2019. He also stated that he had not taken up any new coal financing projects for the past 2 years, which shows an inherent planning by the management early on, despite not having any formal stance towards coal financing. A few months later, OCBC announced that it decided to back out from its last coal project, which was still in discussions, in which OCBC could have chosen to carry on. For DBS in its sustainability report, it has an official company stand in supporting environmentally friendly initiatives, such as engaging in responsible financing of projects. Despite announcing commitments towards sustainable financing in 2018, DBS continued to embark on new coal financing projects that year. DBS was selective and chose to finance coal projects that were deemed to be less dirty, rather than going all out to stay away from coal financing. It made excuses that coal will still be needed by the world to justify its continuation of coal financing. 2 days after OCBC decided to entirely cease any new coal financing projects, DBS decided to also follow suit and adjust from its previous sustainability policies. This shows that DBS' previous announcement was perfunctory and only decided to follow suit after competitive pressures. There are 2 key takeaways from the CSR dimension. Firstly, the moral minimum of the market. There are no regulations that restrict co-financing, but by avoiding financing such projects, OCBC and DBS will be doing more than the bare minimum by not being part of the climate change problem. There is also some degree of active self-regulation involved at the industry level which supports the anti-classical view. Next, going beyond the core of duty, OCBC was the first bank in Southeast Asia to formally quit coal power project financing when all other banks were still in this line of business. Both banks gave up business opportunities in the coal industry to regional competitors by exiting early, but OCBC stood out as it also backed out from existing projects that were still underway. Thus, OCBC delivered more than what it previously committed to do. Therefore, although OCBC and DBS have formal systems in place to support green practices, only OCBC was aligned to its formal systems as DBS acted in contrast to what it set out to do in the first place.
Now moving on to the key insights of our ethical review. From E-Team's case, DBS marketing had failed to understand consumers' needs as they targeted the vulnerable group. Additionally, further research into the case suggested that the company was insincere in handling and had failed to address the concerns of customers despite the gravity of the situation. Here we concluded that the company lacks careful consideration in their marketing efforts and fails to take responsibility. OCBC, on the other hand, had understood the pain points by the vulnerable group. Holding true to the pledge of catering solutions to consumers' needs, the firm moved forward with educating these individuals to make informed decisions. Further research has also shown that the company took responsibility for mistakes by their subsidiary, Bank of Singapore, and responded by reinforcing stringent policies. Thus, we deem OCBC as the bank that undertook responsibility and understood the impact they had in the financing industry. On the second dimension, discrimination, DBS was awarded with the GEI recognition. However, the company continues to experience certain discrimination faced by the industry. Our group believes that this lies in the difficulty to control the lower management behavior, and therefore felt that DBS has to continue building a culture that supports diversity across management in tackling such issues. OCBC, however, has vague and ambiguous in terms of their values against discrimination. In such case, it seems that the major corporation lacks the effort in leveling the playing field. This is likely due to the difficulty in managing lower level behavior as well. Hence, we would suggest for OCBC to address the diversity issue within the company for them to formulate clearer goals for their stakeholders. Finally, CSR. DBS had only made changes to their policies after their competitors took a stance, indicating that the firm was not actually self-regulating but merely meeting the minimum requirement set out by the industry. In other cases, DBS spokesperson responded with the company holding zero tolerance toward data protection breaches and financial crimes. Yet not enough has been done to support this statement. Ultimately, the company seems to adopt a reactive policy management. OCBC's initiative to be the first in Asia to take a stance against funding coal projects likely resulted in the company sacrificing monetary gains for the greater good of the environment. This initiative represents strong self-regulation within the firm, with CSR being taken seriously. Additional research explained how the company continued their volunteering efforts despite the pandemic lockdown, further emphasizing the company's long-term commitment towards CSR. All this sets a premise that OCBC takes a proactive stance in policy changes as they went above and beyond what was expected from the companies in the industry. Therefore, our group's overall stand is that OCBC is the more ethical company in this review, as the company showed strong alignment in the marketing and CSR dimension. We believe that the firm is setting foundation to being an ethical corporation and recognizes their power and responsibility as a prominent financial institution. Thank you.